dance with me, my ghost in grey. Our end is close most every day. Blue-grey circles in the sky. The future's bleak for you and I. Show me your sky dancing skills with pure ballet. Pass the kill to the ringtail on the wings. Dance as winter turns to spring. They hunt me, trap me, shoot me down. Help me, hear me cry out loud. Dancing skills, hear the sound of distant guns. Something evil this way comes. Scorched earth now, where once you flew. Grouse knows me, there's less of you. Hide the bodies, hide the tags, deeply buried in peat hags. Blinding truth is like a lantern, for they can never hide the pattern. They hunt me, trap me, shoot me down. Help me, hear me cry out loud. Deeply buried in peat hags. Wall of death for circus cyan. Holes with spring traps all around. Shoot me down. Leave Helga May. They still await them, for the sky dancers are earthbound. With bellies full of blood and pies, their heads are empty except for lies. But who are we to criticize this rich man's game of genocide?
Hello there, hope you're very well. My name is Paul Smith. I've been a property investor for the last 39 years.
Welcome everybody. I have with me today Mark Thomas. Welcome, everybody. I have with me today Mark Thomas, who is Head of Investigations for RSP. Welcome, everybody. I have with me today Mark Thomas, who is Head of Investigations for RSPB UK. And we're going to talk about raptor persecution in general, and particularly in the case of hen harriers, over the last 12 months. So, Mark, can I ask you to take us back in time to 12 months ago, and how are you feeling then about the situation?
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me here. I think in summary, raptor persecution has continued, and there's no real surprise there. And in particular for hen harriers, there's been a lot of incidents. So in the last 12 months, the RSPB has published a report called Hen Harriers in the Firing Line, and that details all the things that have happened to harriers that we know about. And I caveat that because there's probably lots of things we don't know. And, satellite tags have been the breakthrough because they really give us the definitive of where a bird's vanished and why. So raptor persecution's continued, and RSPB, the team I manage, we've been very active in the field, so we've been detecting lots of incidents. People can't have failed to notice three big cases that have already happened in the last 3 months of the year, actually. So these were all investigated, or they originated and were investigated over a year and a half ago. But there's been a bit of synchronicity in terms of when they've appeared at court. So the first case, was the buzzard bashing case, as we call it, in North Yorkshire. This is where we installed a covert camera on a pheasant estate, and just a matter of days later, we filmed the gamekeeper on that estate, Thomas Mundy, and basically he beat a buzzard to death inside the trap with a stick, and he was fined just over £1,000. And I think it's just worth reflecting at this time, it's, for us, it's never about the individual we catch, and it's never about the punishment. That's just another case, and it's another opportunity to tell the truth of what is going on in lots of places in the countryside. This is widespread. Our data shows it's widespread. And then, of course, the next case after that is the really big case, probably our largest ever significant investigation, where we managed to infiltrate at least one person conspiring to kill a hen harrier. So this is on the Grassington shooting estate, again in North Yorkshire. And to give all the credit to my team, they spent hours and hours over months and months to get into a position where they could install a camera, install a sound recording device. And then lo and behold, the perpetrator, the convicted person in this case, comes and sits right in shot. A really good thing from both of those cases is that the RSPB's covert evidence was accepted by the court. There was no kind of, well, we can't show this or we can't do it because you came onto private land and you infringed our human rights, or whatever the defense argument might be. The footage was categorical. We had incidents here, and it's gold standard evidence, and that's what we thrive or strive actually in the team to obtain. We're painstakingly trying to get the best evidence because that gives you the best chance. And then the final case is in Scotland, where our team filmed another individual, a gamekeeper again, and this time he beat a goshawk to death. And that's actually in court on Friday of this week, in a couple of days' time. He's pleaded guilty again, and we're getting the sentencing of this. So just to come back to what I said, it's not, for us, it's not about the punishment. It's not about the individual. It's absolutely about telling these stories, making the public aware of what's going on, and putting pressure on government. There's only really government that can change this. We can have these cases year in and year out, and multiple cases. We can present all the facts and the evidence and everything. But if government are not going to change it at a policy level, then it's very, very difficult to see how this is going to improve. And that's the good news. That's the real good news here, because about 3 weeks ago, the Westminster government announced in a document called the Land Use Framework Document, they announced the desire to look at game bird shooting in relation to raptor persecution, to look at the potential of licensing, and if they do go down that route, to then consult on what their decision is. So this has taken 25 years, maybe longer than 25 years, and it's the first positive signal. So we massively welcome that. We massively thank the ministers. We've been having private meetings with them for quite a bit of time now. They're convinced by the evidence. The evidence is there for everybody to see what is going on here. And we just hope, that we can work with them, that licensing does come in. And just a reminder to people what licensing is. Licensing is basically just a license so grouse shooting or game bird shooting can operate. So if you run a shoot, you apply for the license. It's not a lot of money. It's a small amount of money. You apply for it annually, and that just gives you the ticket to continue your business. And, the RSPB is neutral on the ethics of game bird shooting. So if you're shooting within the law, you have nothing to fear. It's just the small burden of filling in the form, putting the money in and getting the permission. However, and this is the significant bit, if you are somebody who is breaking the law and your business model routinely requires raptors to be killed in order to maximize your profit, then this is going to impact you. You apply for the license, you get caught, and then at that stage, the license to operate can be removed, and maybe up to 5 years, and that would hit you financially. And that's the point we have to get to. It has to be a meaningful penalty for killing raptors, and it has to make the person who's orchestrating this, be it the landowner, the estate owner, the individual gamekeeper, it's got to make them think, is this worth it? Do we carry on killing birds of prey, or do we start killing them? Or do we actually just go, no, this is now, the stakes are too high? So that's a really pivotal moment. Thank you again for your support as in raising the money that enables us to put tags on harriers. We hope those harriers live a long time, but if they don't and they're illegally killed, then at least we can investigate that with the police, National Wildlife Crime Unit, and try and bring some justice. It's the tags shine a really bright light in where crime is taking place, what are the hot spots, what's the land ownership there, and many of these incidents are on driven grouse moors or near driven grouse moors. And it's no coincidence, as I've said, that 2/3 of all the people convicted are linked to game bird shooting or are game keepers. This is where the problem lies. Having said that, there's lots of people in that industry who are progressive. We just need them to be a bit more vocal.
Mark Thomas, Head of Investigations, RSPB UK, thank you very much.
Hello, welcome to Skydancer Day 2026. I'm Lauren Cook, and I'm very thrilled to be back for my third Skydancer Day, and this year I am joined by a new co-host.
Hi, I'm Ajay Tegala, and I'm really excited to be part of Skydancer Day 2026. We've got a great programme lined up for you today, celebrating hen harriers, their habitats in the uplands and beyond. I myself am based in the East Anglian Fens, where I look forward to seeing hen harriers on their wintering grounds.
Lucky you. Yeah. Well, I'm from London, and we don't get hen harriers there, but we do get many other amazing raptors, including peregrine falcons, which are sort of soaring over the tall buildings, which is really cool. So, Skydancer Day, part of the aim of the day is to raise awareness for raptor persecution, which sadly does still go on. But it's also to offer a vision for the future of our uplands, which are the hilly regions in the UK, and through habitat restoration and conservation, how they can be better for people and nature.
And the theme this year is Our Shared World. So throughout the programme we're going to be looking at some news, stories, conservation projects, looking at raptors, including the hen harrier and their habitats, and also there'll be news of a couple of competitions coming up as well.
Yes, some exciting things to be announced. And talking of exciting announcements, yesterday was David Attenborough's 100th birthday, which I'm sure most of us are aware. So happy birthday, David Attenborough. And very fittingly, we are coming to you live from the Attenborough Nature Reserve in Nottinghamshire.
That's right, we're here in the East Midlands of England, and this wonderful place, Attenborough Nature Reserve, is looked after by the Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust. And they themselves have actually just had an anniversary too, celebrating 60 years since the reserve opened in 1966. And it was opened by none other than Sir David himself. Although the reserve shares the same name, it's actually named after the village nearby. but the Attenborough family have strong ancestral ties here, and also Sir David has supported this reserve for many, many years. So we're going to start today with a film all about here at Attenborough and the beautiful reserve here, presented by their Head of Communications, Erin McDade.
Attenborough Nature Reserve today is a 220 hectare site of special scientific interest, designated largely for its bird interest, particularly overwintering populations of wildfowl. It's a wonderful tranquil haven, a place where families connect with nature. But the history of the site is very different. The site is a former sand and gravel quarry, and the actual nature reserve, the fight for that came out of the plan to fill the quarry lagoons with ash from the power station behind me. The Ratcliffe-on-Soar power station back in the 1960s. When that plan was proposed, local residents were absolutely horrified at the prospect of losing what they were seeing as an important green resource. So it was a very early fight. The wildlife trusts were a developing movement, and the fight to save this site actually led to the formation of Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust. So this site and the trust sort of share our DNA, very much about people's appreciation of nature, but also the fact that people are willing to stand up for and campaign to safeguard nature. After the fight to save the reserve from being infilled with fly ash, there was a campaign to get it designated as a nature reserve, and it was opened as a nature reserve in 1966 by none other than Sir David Attenborough, or Mr. David Attenborough as he was then. And since then, the site has gone on to become a really important natural resource along the Trent Flyway, well known for its breeding bird populations, overwintering bird populations, and it is designated as a site of special scientific interest because it's a really important wetland site, and we must protect those best examples of wetland sites. And here in the Trent Valley we do now have a plethora of sites that are former sand and gravel quarries, which are now wonderful stopping off points for nature on their migrations north and migrations south. And it's just fantastic to see how former industrial sites are now have been reclaimed and then enhanced for nature, providing a wonderful resource for both people and wildlife. Sites of special scientific interest are chosen because they represent the best examples of a type of habitat. So here we have a mix of open lagoons, islands, shallows, and increasingly reed bed habitat, which provides a wonderful habitat for invertebrates, for birds, and increasingly the things like the reed bed habitat is evolving and being added to, actually increasing the diversity of the habitat. And it's absolutely vital that we have a network of such sites that are protected from development. Attenborough Nature Reserve, it is a series of former sand and gravel lagoons, so we do have a lot of deep water habitat, and we are trying to diversify that. So over the last few years we've actually been investing very significantly in the creation of reed bed habitat, trying to create more shallows, more wader habitat for those birds that migrate and come in the spring to breed. Trying to diversify the small areas of grassland that we have at the site, because they're a really important element, and we're actually increasing the diversity of the grazing approach that we do. So we've recently invested in something called no fence collars, so we can actually have our cattle, particularly across different parts of the reserve, gives us more flexibility as to where they can actually access to graze, because they create a much more diverse sward, better habitat for invertebrates. We've also been investing in things like turn platforms, and also we're trying to, at the moment, one of the problems we have is such a popular nature reserve, we do have some conflict with irresponsible dog owners and dogs off leads. So following on from a major engagement program we had, a listening exercise called Attenborough for All, one of the big flags that people highlighted was this conflict with dogs off leads. So we're actually doing a major engagement piece to try and encourage people to keep their dogs on a lead and to explain that this is a place to come and enjoy and bring the family, but it primarily is a nature reserve. So we're just trying to ensure that people keep their dogs on the lead, so they're not disturbing ground nesting birds. So quite an education piece to explain that, you know, many of the birds we have here do nest either on the ground or very low down in the scrub. A lot of the visitor pressure here is very concentrated on the network of paths. So obviously that means with the number of visitors we get, that whilst individual dogs might not be seen to be causing immediate disturbance. There are just so many dogs passing through. I'm a dog owner, many of the staff are dog owners. We want to welcome owners with their dogs, but that is a major programme for us, our Lead by Example campaign. The wildlife here at Attenborough is very diverse. It's often been written about as one of the best places in the country to see a kingfisher, and that link between people being able to come and see and enjoy nature. Great crested grebes are one of the iconic species of the reserve. People love to see them, particularly in their breeding finery and when they're doing their courtship dance. In the winter we get the large flocks of wildfowl. This year we've seen an increase in the number of lapwing coming in as well. There's a real mix. Where we are in the Trent Valley, we get birds passing through on both northerly and southerly migration, but also the fields on the other side of the river are very important for the grazing flocks of geese and for the swans that come here. Those numbers are actually starting to recover now. We had a major outbreak of avian flu, one of the largest inland outbreaks of avian flu, so we did lose huge numbers, particularly of the swans and the geese, but the swan numbers particularly are now recovering, and that's been really pleasing to see. Attenborough is already a great site for wildlife, but we want to continue to enhance its habitats and try and diversify the range of wildlife, but we can't do that in isolation. For the site to thrive in the future, it has to be a part of a connected, enhanced River Trent landscape. So we are doing a lot of work with partners, with local landowners, farmers, to actually see if we can improve habitats along the River Trent and also on the River Erowash, which flows into Attenborough. So we're taking a landscape scale view rather than just looking inwardly at what we can do here at Attenborough. And really exciting development, as well as the work we've been doing with partners on our stretch of the Trent. We are now working with other wildlife trusts to actually look at the whole of the Trent catchment from source to sea, in terms of what we can do in terms of enhancing its benefits for nature, its benefits for people. So that's a really exciting new initiative. Here at Attenborough, the site was born out of people taking action for nature, sort of deciding enough was enough, something needs to be done, and we want to do a lot more of that work. Instead of just inspiring people to come here and enjoy the wildlife, we want their connection with nature to actually inspire them to take action for nature in their own lives, whether that be at home, in their community, at work, or in school. So we want it to be a springboard for action. And also, going right back to the 1960s, the site has a long-standing connection with the University of Nottingham. We now work with both the University of Nottingham and Nottingham Trent University, and we want to build on that heritage of survey and research. And actually, we see the site as a research hub, as a science hub. We want to be not just studying the wildlife here, we want the site to again be a launch pad for research into solving some of the environmental problems that we have, highlighting how we can deal with pollution, deal with climate change, how we can perhaps fast forward and advance habitat restoration. So we want to build on those 6 decades of research and study, but actually looking at again more of the landscape and global context.
Such a beautiful place Attenborough is, absolutely wonderful. And I think it's fantastic how people took action to protect the place for nature, and also making it such a great spot for people to come and see nature. My eyes are peeled for kingfishers. I feel like we could see a flash of blue at any second. And we're very happy now to be joined in person by Erin. Welcome.
Hi, welcome to Attenborough.
Thank you so much. Such a great place to be, looking fantastic today. I've got to ask, what's your favourite part of Attenborough Reserve?
For me, it really is the way it actually connects people with nature. It's so accessible, it's so close to Nottingham and Derby. We get people from all over, and for many people it's the first place they've connected with nature. For many people it holds really strong family memories as well. When we had the appeal to buy the site, a lot of the reasons people were donating wasn't necessarily about the wildlife they'd seen here, it was about those family memories. So it's a really special place for huge numbers of people.
Such a special place indeed.
Yes, and in the film you spoke a little bit about all the efforts that you're going to raise awareness for how dogs are affecting wildlife through disturbances, and I know that that's such a huge issue across many nature reserves, but yeah, I was just wondering how that's going.
really sort of fits into that same issue. Really, we really see this as a place for people and nature. Obviously, primarily it's a nature reserve, so we want the nature to be thriving and protected. But we do get huge numbers of visitors here, and with the increase in dogs over the last few years, particularly since the lockdowns, we have had some clashes. And what we're trying to do is to make it clear that we do welcome people with their dogs, but rather than take a sort of a signage and a rule-making approach, we're trying to sort of effect behaviour change. We're trying to just highlight to people how their dog, even a well-behaved dog or a dog that's just going about its normal behaviour of sniffing around, can cause disturbance to birds, particularly to birds and other wildlife. So yeah, we've employed our ambassador dogs and volunteers, responsible dog owners who do enjoy bringing their dogs here, to basically demonstrate that it's perfectly possible to bring your dog here, see and enjoy the wildlife without it disturbing the wildlife. And hopefully the more people see that behaviour being modelled, that they will follow that behaviour. I think those people, the minority of people who are responsible, hopefully will see most dogs on leads in future. And it's a difficult one, because a lot of people just want us to ban dogs altogether. We don't want to go down that route. It is a place for everyone to come and enjoy, and if people can just be a bit more responsible or just understand about how their dog behaviour is impacting on wildlife, I think most people will get that, and want to not have that impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, such important work for sure. And on a slightly different note, across some of your other sites at the Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust, I know you've got enclosures where beavers have been reintroduced, and I know there's also plans to reintroduce elk. Can you tell us about why elk?
Yeah, I'd probably say an aspiration at the minute rather than a plan. But yeah, we would really like to reintroduce elk to the Trent Valley. We're working very closely with Derbyshire Wildlife Trust. They have a beaver enclosure at Willington, which is almost within eyesight from here. It's the next power station down if you look down the river. So they've got a beaver enclosure there. We've got one at Idle Valley. And European elk, actually, they're a keystone species like beaver, and actually on sites where they're both active, they have a really brilliant interaction and help to improve the wetland habitats, because a lot of people don't realise we haven't had elk in the UK for possibly 2,000 years or more, that they are actually largely a semi-aquatic species. So they're a huge herbivore, but they actually wallow and dive and swim in the margins, and that combination of their work and then the work of the beavers, utilising some of those young trees that the elk promote, they use them for their lodges and for their dams. So yeah, they can help to shape habitat for yet more species. So we're really excited, but we're at the early stages. So working with Rewilding Britain, we've actually commissioned a disease risk assessment. So the first thing we want to do is make sure that by reintroducing elk to the UK, we wouldn't be putting livestock or any other wildlife at risk. But yeah, once we get over that hurdle and we're not anticipating any problems, then yeah, hopefully that'll be the green light for us to go on to the next stage, which would be more engagement.
Fantastic, exciting times, and we wish you the best of luck with that. And thank you so much for talking to us today.
It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you, Craig. Oh, I can't wait to see an elk swimming underwater. I can't even imagine that. They're so big. Amazing. So now it's time for a lovely film by our very own Hen Harrier Action co-chair. He's a very passionate person. He's a naturalist, and you'll know him as Indy Green. So we will watch now as Indy takes us on a trip around a very special place to him, Sherwood Forest.
Hello, my name is Indy and I'm 20, and this behind me is my playground. This is RSPB Sherwood Forest, and I've been volunteering in the forest with the RSPB ever since I was 14, and I still enjoy it just as much now as I did then. And my plan for today is to take you on a bit of a tour around the forest to show you just the power and the strength in volunteering and what I've got out of it, because I've met so many amazing people, seen so many amazing species and learnt so much about the forest that I would really love to take you on a little tour with. So let's have a look. Now, I would like to introduce you to Twister. This is my absolute favourite tree in the forest, just because It's a tree that twists. I mean, look at it, it's absolutely unbelievable. But the most amazing thing about this tree is that it's still alive. This whole section of bark carries all the nutrients that it needs up the back limb where it twists and feeds all these branches up in the canopy. But there's nothing inside. All the heart rot has rotted away. There is no innards to this tree. It's literally the shell all the way across the outside keeping it up. But it's just my absolute favourite. I've never seen a tree anywhere in the world that looks quite as spectacular as this. So welcome to the forest floor of RSPB Sherwood, and you join me sat on a beautiful log that used to be a big ancient oak. And I just wanted to talk a bit about what the RSPB are doing here. So they've had management rights in the forest around about 2018, 2019, so a good few years now, and they've really transformed the forest for the better. What you can see behind me is what we call woodland pasture. So it's not just a woodland, it's not just a monoculture, and it isn't just a monoculture in terms of the understory as well. It's a mishmash of lots of different habitats. You've got bits of scrub in the mix, bits of open ground floor for the ground nesting birds to forage and nest, and of course some of the fantastic ancient oaks, the next generations and the younger ones. We've got the whole generation of oak trees coming through here, because that's what makes Sherwood so special, is those ancient oaks. We have the largest collection of ancient oaks in Europe here, 997 ancients. This is one of the magnificent trees I'm talking about. This is a beautiful ancient oak tree, and just look at it, the size of it and the width of the trunk and the breadth of the branches is just absolutely an unbelievable example of an ancient oak. And this right here is exactly what we're trying to protect, and especially here because Sherwood Forest has the largest concentration of trees like these ancient oaks in Western Europe. We've removed some of the lower shrubs that go around the tree, so it's something called haloing, so just opening up the surrounding area to make sure that this tree gets enough light in as possible. Because the way these trees age is that they start to fall away from the top. As they get older, they can't support these larger limbs anymore, so they start to drop. So then what they do, they start sending out shoots like these to gather sunlight. But of course, if you have loads of tall trees around catching all the sunlight at the top of the canopy, these lower branches aren't going to get any. So the haloing just allows trees like these to keep going for as long as possible. But what I also love to think about is what this tree has seen. This tree could be, goodness, 600, 700 plus years old. It's been standing here for so long, so many moments in history that this tree has bared witness to just by doing its thing. And to think that this tree supports however many hundreds, if not thousands, different life forms is really quite something. We're now on the heathland. This is called Budbee, and again multiple priority species here, but two of the main ones are nightjar and woodlark. And in this area we are in particular on the western side of the reserve is one of the first places that nightjar were kind of recorded on site really, and they've been doing really well. However, we always recognise that some bits of the reserve maybe could perform better for birds like these. So what we've done here is open it up to create a bit more of a glade to encourage nightjar, because they're a ground nesting bird, but they still like a bit of shelter, a bit of protection. So there's a couple of things we've done here. So this whole area around me here used to be a big block of pine, and we've chopped it down, mostly removed it in some cases, but sometimes we've left them. So places like this, we've managed to kind of pleach it here, and also it creates a nice bit of shelter beneath the pine here, and also potentially even a perch for nightjar to churr on, that fantastic haunting sound you hear in the lovely late summer evenings. So obviously we're not wasting any of the timber, this is still of interest to us. And then over here, because nightjar are, as I said, a ground nesting bird, but they also need their privacy, and they are quite susceptible to disturbance. That could be from dogs, that could be from people, any predators, things like that. So what we've done with some of the timber over here is create a bit of a screen. So we've felled some of the trees to make it a bit harder for some of those species or people trying to get in towards the nightjars. It just gives them that little bit of extra privacy, that little bit of extra space in protection with this glade. And as I said, none of the timber is wasted. So in the distance you can see over there we also have a log pile with some of the larger trunks that we decided to wedge between those two trees, and that will rot down over time and create, as we've already talked about, that fantastic dead wood habitat, which is so important. But it's really things like this that is what I really enjoy about volunteering, because there's a number of these kind of glades that we've opened up, and I'm also involved with the surveys here on site. And when you're surveying these fantastic areas and you see a new pair of nightjar or woodlark or any other bird that's essentially sort of set up camp in one of these areas that we've opened up, it is the most satisfying feeling knowing that you and that fantastic group of people have done your bit and it's actually resulted in a new territory or a new set of birds moving into the area. It is the most satisfying thing. But of course, in Sherwood and on the heathland, it's all about trees. And another benefit of opening up this area is to enhance the life of this fantastic next generation oak tree, giving it as much light around its lower branches as we possibly can. So this all seems absolutely fantastic, and not to put a downer on things, it really, really is. RSPB Sherwood is an absolutely fantastic woodland, so well managed, and so many amazing species, as we've talked about, they're all thriving in the forest, which is so brilliant, and it gives me a huge amount of pride to be able to volunteer here and to have done my bit along with so many other amazing volunteers helping out within the woodland, making it better for people and nature. But the problem is still the lack of woodland. You can look out over this expanse, and although it looks big, in the grand scheme of things it really, really isn't. And you can look out over the surrounding landscape and still see how fragmented it is. You've got this field here, you've got the arable, you've got the farmland, the forestry, the villages, the roads, all cut up what used to be an absolutely ginormous woodland, and now we just have these fragments left. So I suppose my message is, and what we all need to strive for, I believe, is larger, healthier landscapes managed in the same way the RSPB managed Sherwood here so brilliantly. So yeah, we need those larger, resilient landscapes if we have a chance of saving nature.
Wow, fantastic. How amazing are some of those trees, Lauren?
Honestly, I can't believe that twister tree is still alive. It's absolutely amazing. And those ancient oaks are just so impressive. And it's really fascinating how there are old, ancient, sort of native trees can support so many other species. And I looked this up, and the tree that supports the most species out of any that we have in the UK is the ancient oak, which supports 2,300 other species, and that's compared to introduced trees, which might only support like tens or 100 or so species. So they're so impressive.
Very impressive. I do love oak trees, absolute favourite of mine. As is Indy, such a fantastic person. He's wonderful. And I love that he's been volunteering for so long. And of course, the benefits of volunteering are so important in the world of nature conservation, because so much is achieved thanks to the support of volunteers. And then in return, they get that warm feeling of knowing that they're making a difference and helping nature. And of course, as Indy said, restoring habitats and joining them together is so important. And we'll be looking at some more projects later on in the programme that do just that, habitat expansion. And today isn't just Skydancer Day, today is World Migratory Bird Day as well. And every year on this day, eBird celebrates with Global Big Day. And so people all across the planet today are out in teams and as individuals birdwatching and recording their sightings, sending them in to ebird.org/global big day. And I know we're going to get our binoculars out and do a bit of bird watching here at Attenborough later and send in our data. And so get involved today, even if you just spend a few minutes, see what birds you've got out and support Global Birding Big Day at ebird/global big day, because bird conservation is a global thing.
Absolutely. And if you're going out there, you're spending some time in nature and you're between the ages of 5 and 16, you might be interested in our Young Wild Writers competition. So we caught up with the absolutely lovely Jill Lewis earlier this week to talk about the competition, and we're going to hear more about that from Jill now. Oh, hi Jill, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Lovely to be joining you on Skydancer Day.
Yes, yeah, it was fantastic to have you back, and it's really great that we're having the Young Wild Writers competition again this year. So could you please tell us a bit about the theme for the year and some more details about the competition?
Yeah, absolutely. It's in its 7th year, which is really, really exciting, and it's going from strength to strength. So this year we've got a new theme, and the theme this year is Our Shared World. So you have to have a little bit of a think about that. And similar to previous years, we've got 3 categories. We've got the young category, which is 5 to 8-year-olds, the junior category, which is 9 to 12-year-olds, and the senior category, which is 13 to 16-year-olds. And it's a competition of 500 words on our shared world. And it can be non-fiction, it can be prose, it can be fiction, it can be poetry, it can be a letter, it can be any style of writing, as long as it concentrates on the theme of our shared world. And there are some pretty fabulous prizes as well.
That sounds fantastic, Jill. What a wonderful theme, our shared world. What does that mean to you?
Oh, what does that mean to me? Well, I think our shared world, we know that the planet is in pretty dire straits with climate change and habitat loss. And I think the solution to that is really up to us as humans. And I think when we look around the world, we can see great areas of hope where we can change things to share our world with the wild world. And that's absolutely essential for us, for our future life and the future life of this planet. So for me, it's about creating habitats for wild creatures, for allowing sort of the flora to establish and creating natural wild habitats across the world so we can all live together, really.
And I was wondering, and this competition is obviously aimed at children, and there's going to be lots of people writing in who noticing nature around them and are expressing it on the page. And I was just wondering, why do you think it's important for children to feel connected to nature?
It's vital children are connected to nature because, as I said previously, it's important for our future on this planet to be able to understand how important of biodiversity across the planet is, just on that very basic level of saving our future. But also the natural world is just such an inspiration for us, whether or not it's in arts. It gives us space to think and to breathe. And in a time when lots of people feel quite a lot of anxiety, nature is a place to relax and really sort of feel perhaps connected with the elements in a very different way than if we're connected to our screens and we're connected to indoors. So for children to really be connected with nature is vital for their future self and also for their mental and physical health as well. But on perhaps another aspect, it's really important for children to really appreciate what's in their own where they live, in their own hometown, because I think it's very easy to see documentaries of perhaps lions and tigers and orangutans, but it's very easy to forget that we've got some incredible wildlife just on our back doorstep. So it's really important for children to sort of go out into your back garden, into your park, and just sort of see really what we've got around us, and to be able to protect that in our own environment. Because if everyone can protect what's on their back doorstep, then that has a sort of patchwork effect where we can all help to protect habitats across towns and cities, across the countryside as well.
That's so true. Yeah, that really resonates with me when I think back to my childhood. And I'd love to know about your early experiences. Were there some key connections with nature when you were a child that then shaped your future?
I think definitely. I grew up in the city of Bath in a house which had is sort of very sort of ordinary house, but it had a very long garden because it was very steep, so no other houses could be built on there. And because it was steep, my parents couldn't mow the lawn, it was that steep, and so it became a really overgrown tangle of wildness. And that was sort of where I used to just go down and sort of explore sort of all the sort of mini beasts that were there, and lots of birds nested in those sort of brambles. So that was really my sort of growing up in a very urban environment, but having that wilderness within reach. And I think that was really important to me as a child, to know that I had that on my doorstep. And I think I've carried that through, whether or not I've travelled through to other urban places or to wilder places, to realise that we've all got it within reach of us. And I was just I was one of those children who was just absolutely fascinated by anything that crawled or swam or flew. But I think the biggest thing is I used to stand in my back garden with my hand outraised, and I used to dream that a golden eagle would come and fly out of nowhere and fly into my garden, but that never happened, unfortunately.
There's still time. Keep trying.
There's still time.
Or maybe a hen harrier, that would be good.
Maybe hen harrier. And we did see, I live in West Wales now, and you don't get many hen harriers in West Wales, but we did get one which flew over our back garden, which was just incredible. I remember just seeing this hen harrier. It was a female hen harrier, and they don't breed around here, but it was just the most magical moment. It sort of hovered and flew around the garden because we got quite long grass, so I was obviously looking for something to eat in there, and then it went off. But that was magical. So perhaps I've had my magical sort of golden eagle hen harrier moment.
That sounds amazing. Yeah, that is really magical. And I feel like we've all been kind of inspired to enter the competition if we were the right age range. But I was just wondering, for people who are interested in entering, but aren't quite sure where to begin, could you give them any advice?
I think the important thing is to sort of write about something that really interests you. So it might be a wild animal that interests you, or a habitat. It can be on your own home turf, or it can be in any country across the world, but something that really interests you. And when you're thinking about writing, if you want to write about a character, really sort of try to get into the head of that character that you're writing about. And if you're writing a poem, think about how those words will land on your reader, how impactful they will be, and how they will sort of tell that important story that you want to get across. And because how I became involved in the Young Wild Writer competition was that I wrote a story which was Skydancer. So this is about the hen harrier and the illegal persecution of hen harriers and the burning of the uplands to try to support the grouse, which supports the grouse industry, but decimates the wildlife. And when I was writing this story, I first of all thought, well, I really want to write about this bird, but I wanted to find a character human characters to tell those stories. So for me, I used a boy to tell that story, but you could write about a wild animal, you could write it from the animal's point of view. There's so many different ways you could approach that story, but make it authentic, and please don't use AI. I hope we can spot it if you do. AI makes things become a little bit bland and homogenized, and I think hopefully when people write with their real own true authenticity and voice, I think that tends to shine through.
Thanks so much, Jill. The competition sounds fantastic. And for everybody keen to get involved, the deadline is midnight on the 26th of July. So get writing and get it submitted before then. And the three categories, of course, as Jill mentioned at the start, are young, which is age 5 to 8, junior, age 9 to 12, and senior, age 13 to 16. And some fantastic prizes to be won. Big thanks to Jill. Such a wonderful person. I love her enthusiasm for writing. And also she's got a great talent for communicating conservation issues in really imaginative ways. And hopefully you're feeling inspired. If you're aged between 5 or 16 or know somebody who is, please do submit something in any style, really, as long as it's no more than 500 words and fits the theme of our shared world and what that means to you.
Absolutely, and that theme, our shared world, can be quite a wide interpretation, and we'll accept any interpretation of the theme. So you can find more details about the competition on our website and in the link below the video. The deadline is the 26th of July, and Jill is then going to be judging the entries and announcing the winners on the 8th of August. So there are some absolutely amazing prizes up for grabs this year. In each of the 3 categories, we'll have a winner who will win a pair of Opticron Adventure binoculars. We then have runners-up who will win some £20 book tokens, and the overall winner will also get a special online video call with Jill herself to the school. So some really, really amazing prizes, and definitely do enter if you're considering it.
Absolutely, and good luck. Best of luck to you. We're now going to show a short interview that was filmed by Greta Santagata up with DI Mark Harrison, and he talks about his work and the work of his team dealing with raptor persecution, but also what they're doing to help prevent this wildlife crime.
The biggest challenges that we face are finding out, first of all, that a crime's taking place. The birds can't contact us and let us know what's going on, so we rely heavily on members of the public finding things. There are organisations like the RSPB that will go out and deliberately look for things as well to see if they can identify where crime's taking place. But that's one of the biggest challenges that we face. But then also coming up into an area like this and trying to find evidence is really, really difficult, because you're looking for something that's it's a bird, you know, it blends in with its environment, so it's really, really tricky to find. But that's where the satellite tagging can really significantly help us, and we have got new techniques and new ways of trying to recover evidence. But I think for me, overall, all of that sits at the back end of crime. The biggest challenge is removing the drivers. It's getting in and speaking with those people who are involved in the crime, making the crime socially unacceptable, and removing their desire to have to commit the crimes. Now what I'm starting to see is within the shooting communities, people are sick of it, because people who go shooting and are going out there and they might be hunting, they might be clay pigeon shooting, they're getting a negative spotlight put on them by these people who are committing crime. And it's not fair on them, but they now need to turn in and start looking in. It's no different than, I suppose, in policing. If we've got corrupt police officers, I don't want corrupt police officers because it makes us all look bad. So I'll do my best to push those people out and to report them properly so that we can get something done about it. We need to start seeing that now from within. That's the culture change that's got to happen. It's got to be them that does it. So since 2021, my team has analysed 152 referrals that have come to our team. Now that's just for satellite tagged hen harriers that have come to us that have disappeared. And we call it a stop no malfunction. So the satellite tag should be operating perfectly fine. You can see it in the data, it's operating perfectly fine. And for some reason, all of a sudden it stops. So far, we've identified 8 hotspots. Out of 8, 7 are on driven grouse moors. One of them is not, but it's next door to the worst offending one. A hotspot is basically a location where a crime involving a tagged hen harrier has repeated in the last 3 years. Now that is just involving tagged birds. So, you know, there's intelligence that we've got that says that, and we include this in the data when we go, that of other birds, gulls, buzzards, red kites, other things that are also victims of crime. But we go there with the data, with the satellite tag data that we can show to somebody to say, we can't hide the data, we're not making this up. We might not be able to prove exactly who's pulling the trigger and who's committing the crime, but we can say crime's taking place here and we need to work together to stop it. So out of the 8 hotspots that we've been to, as I said, 7 of them are on driven grouse moors. They are the worst offending ones, that's why they're a hotspot. We started doing the visits in January 2024. We've not had a single crime involving a satellite tagged hen harrier on a hotspot since then. Not a single crime. Involving a tagged bird. Now, like I've mentioned before, the Dingwall case, we know, and intelligence says, they're targeting the untagged birds. So there's still potentially issues there, but these were the worst ones. So not a single crime involving a tagged bird since January 2024. what we would need in order to improve our evidence recovery is more eyes and ears on the ground. We need more people reporting things to us. And as I mentioned earlier, that's people within the community who are working up in these environments. They need to realise that the impact it's going to have on them and on their industry. They need to be telling us more. But there's a lot of people that come up to these places walking the dogs, bird watching, wildlife watching. We've got Operation Owl, which is a national project for the National Wildlife Crime Unit, where that's all about asking people to be our eyes and ears. I suppose it's neighbourhood watch for these remote locations. Get out there. If you see something and it's safe to do so, record it. Make a note of the location, either a grid reference or what 3 words, descriptions of the people involved, what they're doing, how are they acting, what can you actually see. If it's safe to do so, film it, take a photograph. Eyes and ears on the ground has got to be the best way for us, and more satellite tag birds without.
What a fantastic film. I thought there were some really interesting points raised there by Mark about the community as well, and taking community action. And speaking of people coming together, it's an absolutely incredible day here in Nottinghamshire. The sun is out, there's lots of people out and about, there's some pond dipping going on directly next to us, so apologies if you can hear a bit of background noise, but it's just testament to how great of a place Attenborough Nature Reserve is. So, going back to the film, we are joined by the filmmaker herself, Greta Santagata. Welcome, Greta.
Thank you.
So, in the film, I was really struck by those kind of wide shots that you got of the landscape and how vast that was. And Mark made the point it's very difficult to identify evidence of wildlife crime going on because of just, you know, how big it is. And yeah, what was it like going up there to film?
Yeah, no, absolutely. This is the nature of the uplands. So those wide shots were taken in the Yorkshire Dales. That's where, when I arranged the interview with Mark, he said, why don't we film in the Yorkshire Dales, because that's one of the hotspots. So I went to get all my landscape footage, but then when it came to actually trying to find a location to film, so when you film something, you need permission from the landowner, even if you're on a public footpath. So it turns out I contacted the National Park Authority, and although they were very, very supportive of this interview, of this film, to highlight this problem, they were very honest with me and said, look, you're not going to find a single landowner in the Yorkshire Dales who's going to let you film. So we had to do a sudden change of plan. So actually his interview was filmed in a bit of moorland that's just near my house, and it's actually from the film that I made last year here at the Skydancer Day, which was about, I don't know if people remember it, the Brightstones rewilding. So that was a community project where they managed to raise money. They were fundraising last year, and they managed to raise all the money, and that little bit of moorland is now in community ownership as of October 2025. So that was easy. I could just go there and film with permission.
Well, you're a very multi-talented person, and I know you're also a journalist. And I wanted to ask you how you feel journalism is a tool for acting against wildlife crime.
So I think journalism is absolutely essential. It's providing knowledge. So if there is no knowledge, then, you know, out of sight, out of mind. People really cannot find out about what's happening, especially in remote places, as Mark was saying. So journalism is information, and it also is fundamental in affecting public opinion. Now, I was just looking a few days ago, Reporters Without Borders have released the 2026 data for the Freedom of Information, the Freedom of Journalist Index. And it's a study that they do every year over 180 countries. And what's really alarming is that in 2026 now we've reached a 25-year low in press freedom. With more than half of the countries now, of the 180 countries analysed, now being considered in very difficult circumstances. Now the UK is at number 18, so press freedom is considered moderate, so it's not too bad, but the reason why it's not scoring higher is because of too much foreign ownership of the media, but also because of the lack of pluralism, which means that most of the titles that you see, in fact all of the mainstream titles that you see, are owned by 3 major news corporations. So obviously, when all of the media is in the hands of few and powerful people, it's very difficult to challenge the status quo, which is exactly what journalism should be doing. So I've definitely worked in environments that I'm not going to name, but in environments where I was told that the word hand harrier was forbidden. Couldn't even mention it out loud in the office. So that's the situation. However, there's still really, really, really amazing journalists out there. It's just that more and more they're having to work independently. So yeah, support independent journalism.
Absolutely, yeah. Support hen harriers, support independent journalism. Absolutely.
Well, yeah, amazing to hear about the context of it in international journalism as well. But next we're going back to the UK. We have another film about a nature reserve, and this time it's Wallace Island Nature Reserve in Essex. It's absolutely massive, it's 115 hectares, and it's an area of reinstated salt marsh, islands and mudlands, which is now a thriving habitat.
That's right, and it's located between two rivers, the River Crouch and the River Roach, and this project is a partnership between Crossrail and the RSPB. And in this next film, site manager Rachel Fancy describes this partnership, which is a big win for nature, but it's also reducing the threat of coastal flooding.
So the RSPB were looking to do a project in the area that would compensate for losses of habitats in Essex and elsewhere across the east coast, habitats such as salt marsh and mudflats, and then also looking for a big realignment scheme that could show how coasts could adapt to climate change in the future. And Wallace Island was looked at as somewhere where this could happen. It was a reasonably large area, it had one landowner, and it was suitable for making different wetland habitat. So I wasn't actually here when the first decisions as to what habitats were going to be created were here, but because we're below sea level on the island itself, that had to be taken into account when we chose what habitats to make. So if you made a hole in the sea wall, when you're below sea level, an awful lot of water comes on, as you can imagine, and you need a way of reducing that water. So you can either do that with a sluice structure, which obviously narrows the hole and allows you to control the amount of water coming on, or you could actually raise the land so the hole's less big and less water comes on and off each tide. And the RSPB and Crossrail partnered up, and Crossrail was digging a lot of material out of London to make the Elizabeth line, and 3 million tonnes of that material came to Wallace Island to raise the land, and by doing so we could then make a hole in the seawall and bring the water on to make a new area of intertidal habitat and managed realignment. Yeah, in 2015 the walls were breached and the water came on for the first time, and obviously initially it was bare, inert soil that Crossrail had brought in, and it had been placed at the right levels, so we got that in the future, the full range of habitats from mudflats all the way through the different salt marsh levels. But what we needed was the sea to bring in sediments as well to lay on top of that land forming. So the sea brings in sediments and makes that nice soft mud that then the invertebrates can live in, that the birds will then feed on. And it will also obviously bring in seeds and bits of plant matter that then start the whole vegetation communities developing. So since in those 10 years, we've had huge amounts of bird numbers coming in the winter. So we've got several thousand knot peaking in the winter, and knot didn't used to live on Wallace Island before that. And in total, across the whole of the reserve, we regularly see over 30,000 birds, and peaking at 39 to 40,000 birds in midwinter on particularly high spring tides, which is when we get the most. So you can see in this area behind me all the land that's coloured in green. That was the original reserve boundary, but recently at the end of 2024 we got a grant from the Ida Davis Foundation to buy these 3 fields over here in the northwest, and we've got plans to make habitats in those, as you imagine. So one will have a lagoon in it, which will use water that used to drain out to sea when it was arable land, and the other 2 will complete our habitat mix of on the reserve by having some more scrub, which we don't really have much of at the moment, and some more rough grassland for raptors to hunt. Well, obviously we'd like to continue to build on the numbers of birds that we've got here now. We've got really good numbers of wintering birds. We've got good numbers of some of the summer breeding birds, so good numbers of avocets and common terns, but we would like to build those up more if possible and build up our core lapwing and redshank populations in breeding time as well. And then with this new scrub developing, we might get, in the future, get some of the farmland birds, the hedgerow loving birds that we don't have at the moment, such as yellowhammer. So that will be a really nice thing to add to the reserve mix.
Gosh, what a fantastic place that looks. I think that's next on my list to visit. It looks amazing. And I feel like I've been struck a few times today hearing about how in habitat restoration it's really important to create a mosaic across the landscape of different types of places. So we've got the salt marsh lagoons and grassland, and how all of those places can sort of work together to encourage biodiversity and also help us with our fight against climate change and adapt to climate change.
Absolutely, for sure. Yeah, the more diverse the mosaic of habitats, the better it is for more wildlife. And yeah, really great to see these partnerships. I mean, what a great collaboration between the industries, the railway industry and the conservation organisation. And I think working together is so important because so much more can be achieved when there's these projects that are working in partnership and expanding these possibilities that not only deliver for, as we say, for wildlife and for climate change adaptation, but also for access for people as well, because that's so important that everybody has that right to access and enjoy these wild spaces. Definitely.
And we have another partnership on display next. So we are heading to the Peat District, where the National Trust have been restoring peatland. So they've been undoing some historic damage to the area and improving the habitat for biodiversity, including creating suitable habitat for hen harriers. So General Manager Craig Best shares the story of their restoration and how important it is to continue this work.
So we're in the High Peak Estate, and the National Trust looks after around 13,000 hectares of this wonderful moorland landscape. And we've been looking after this landscape for decades now, and we work in partnership with a whole range of different players in this landscape to improve it for nature. But if we look back over the last few decades, we've done a huge amount of peatland restoration work, and the reason we need to do that investment is because the Industrial Revolution dumped huge quantities of acid rain. So it didn't matter if the wind was blown from Sheffield or Manchester, all of that pollution flew over the High Peak and there was deposited as acid rain. And even acidic loving plants within that peat landscape found it too acidic to grow, and we had huge expanses of bare peat. And we've invested millions in restoring that landscape, revegetating the bare peat, blocking all those gullies and channels and ditches to re-wet this landscape. On an annual basis, we're investing somewhere in the region of £6 million to restore the peat, establish trees, but importantly work with our tenant farmers to establish successful, viable farming businesses to help us manage this landscape through conservation grazing. And what we're beginning to see now is through that significant investment is that range of habitats. We've got wet areas, we've got grassland areas, we've got areas of woodland, scattered trees and scrub, patches of bracken and areas of heather and bilberry. And all of that mosaic of habitat is producing small birds, small mammals, and we know this is an important food source for species like hen harriers, especially when they're rearing their young. And we know hen harriers arrive in these upland areas in the spring and summer to breed, to look after their young, and of course eventually, providing they're well fed, will fledge off and then fly into the wider landscape. And over the last 5 years in the High Peak, we've had 8 nesting attempts, most of which have been on National Trust land in the High Peak landscape, and we're very proud of that, and we think that is evidence in the hard work of restoring this landscape in partnership with a range of players. So the peat in this landscape, or that peat habitat, has been damaged for the Industrial Revolution, and I mentioned that previously because of acid rain, and a whole range of other factors such as burning has had a detrimental impact on this landscape. And what we do is we revegetate the bare peat by flying in bags of brash, which is cut heather, and we spread that on the bare peat, and that just brings in mooling plants, or the seed from mooling plants, and it also provides a microclimate as well close to the surface to maintain that vegetation, that moisture, and then in time the vegetation will regrow. We've also got miles and miles of gullies and channels, erosional channels, and what we do is we block those channels to keep the water on the hill for a longer period of time and raise the water table. And we use lots of different types of dams, sometimes the stone dams, sometimes the heather bale, sometimes the peat dams, and we use different dams depending on the particular situation. But we're also planting millions of little bundles of sphagnum, and we're establishing sphagnum back into this landscape. Sphagnum and other plants are really key for keeping moisture in those peatland soils, and we know sphagnum can retain moisture even in the height of summer. And so for the last 5 years we've had 8 breeding attempts in the High Peak landscape. Most of them have been on National Trust land. But I think we'd like to get to the point where we have 2 to 3 pairs successfully breeding on our land. I don't think that's too ambitious. I think that's what we should be aiming for, over the next 5 years. And clearly the management of this landscape is working, to hopefully deliver that in the future. But obviously, as we know, persecution remains a key threat to hen harriers. And whilst we're having success on our land, it's when those birds fly off the trouble starts. So obviously the work we do on our land is really important, but it's really important for the UK population as a whole that others get involved to protect hen harriers. So the High Peak landscape, or the National Trust part of that landscape, is around 13,000 hectares. And that's a big old chunk of land, but we know species like hen harrier, they need much bigger landscapes. And as we know, they fly across the UK into Europe, and we've got data to prove that. And it's been exciting to see birds that have been reared and fledged on our land travel these immense distances. So we are working in partnership with other landowners to encourage them to manage their land in a way that will benefit hen harriers and a whole range of other species for the future. And a big part of the National Trust strategy is not just looking after our own land, but it's working beyond our boundaries and working in partnership with other landowners to benefit nature.
I really love Craig's enthusiasm, and I think it's fantastic and actually quite incredible how that damage from the Industrial Revolution is being undone. And isn't it wonderful, this peatland restoration that's happening on a landscape scale?
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm super interested in peatland restoration. I don't know loads about it, but funnily enough, I think, Ajay, you have some direct experience with this project.
Yes, on a wider scale. Yeah, so I work for the National Trust. I'm part of a team that works at Wycombe Fen near Cambridgeshire, in Cambridgeshire. And so obviously that was the uplands in the Peak District where peat's being restored. But down in the lowlands, in the lower lying areas like the fens, a lot of land has been drained over the years and that habitat's been lost. And the peat has dried out and degraded over the years, but we're rehydrating some of it and basically turning the land back to nature, creating a wilder, wetter space. And it's fantastic to see habitats forming in a very short space of time. We've had reed beds that have established, and wildlife moves in. We've got hen harriers overwintering, marsh harriers breeding, and sometimes we see these beautiful hen harriers coming in the winter, and I think, well, maybe they've come from the Peak District, because of course, as Craig said, hen harriers fly beyond boundaries, and so peatlands across the UK are important for them. And when we restore these habitats, we have to think on a wider scale.
Absolutely. It must be so hopeful to see things bouncing back so quickly once you start putting that work in, and must be really rewarding to work on that. So, thank you for telling us more about it. And next we're going from flying birds to flying insects. So we had some moth traps out last night, and we're going to go over a couple of the moths that we found. And to tell us more, we have the wonderful Emma Butler from Butterfly Conservation. So welcome, Emma.
Hi, nice to see you.
Great.
And a big thanks to Rob here from the Attenborough Nature Reserve. He set a couple of moth traps for us yesterday, and I've just been sheltering this one from the wind. Now this is a bit of a special one. So this is an eyed hawk moth. And he's called an eyed hawk moth because if he was feeling threatened, which right now he's just quite chill here on this piece of bark, but if he was feeling threatened, then he would show his underwings, which have got some vivid marks on that look like eyes. So if we were a predator and we were bothering him, he would show his eye marks as a form of defence. It's quite cool. And another cool thing about this moth is they don't eat as adults. So he's got no functioning mouth parts. So when he was a caterpillar, he did all the eating he needed to do. And now as an adult, they don't eat at all. So as an adult, their job is to reproduce. As a caterpillar, their job is to feed.
Fantastic.
So he's pretty cool, and he's not the only hawk moth.
Ooh, we've got more.
So I'll
Thank
pass
you.
him to you.
Wow. It's huge.
It is.
And then on this piece of lavender here, we've got a poplar hawk moth. So the poplar hawk moth is similar to the eyed hawk moth in also not having any functioning mouth parts as an adult. So this moth can live 3 to 4 weeks without feeding. Does all its feeding as a caterpillar on poplars, as you may have guessed from the name. And we were talking earlier about how to tell the difference between the male and the female of this species, and discovered an interesting fact, which is that they both come to light, but the female comes to light before midnight and the male after midnight. So we were talking about it a bit like a Cinderella moth if you're a female poplar. So we don't know what time this poplar arrived in the trap, but if we did know, we might be able to have a guess at whether it was male or female.
Wow.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
Like women's
Shall I take
hour.
it? Thank you very much.
To you.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
And then we've got, so this one, moving on to much smaller species here. This is an ermine moth.
Wow.
So, I mean, have a guess why they're called an ermine.
They're very regal looking, aren't
They are very regal
stylish.
looking. Yeah, so they resemble the ermine, and of course the fur from ermines was traditionally used by royalty and nobility in their clothing. I mean, it is such a cool moth. And this moth, so as a caterpillar, this moth eats a number of different plants, but including nettles. And I noticed there's a lot of nettles around it, which is a great thing. We like nettles, we really like nettles. And so it's not surprising, really, that we've caught one of these in the trap. And probably a lot of people who are lucky enough to have a garden, if you've got a patch of nettles, you might also have these in your own back garden. So So that's our little ermine. And I've got one more to show you. Which, now Ajay, this is one of your favourites, isn't it?
I do like this one, yes.
So this is a green carpet moth. And we think probably quite freshly emerged because it's got nice colours, and these do fade as they get a bit older. And green carpet moth is named because of the patterns on there. They resemble the carpet, as in the floor covering of carpet. And so a lot of these moths got their common names during the Victorian era, and so that pattern there maybe resembles a Victorian carpet. Important to say, they're named that way because of the resemblance to the floor covering, and not because they'll eat your carpets. These won't eat fabric.
No.
So we've got 2,500 species of moths in the UK. Only 2 of them will eat fabrics, and it's not this one. So actually, most moths are not going to eat your jerseys.
No. They get a bad rap, don't they, moths? Because of the carpet.
They do. Those two moths that might munch your carpets give the rest of them bad names, don't they?
Oh,
such a shame.
Yeah, it is.
This one, no danger to any fabric. Bed straw, I think, is what the caterpillars eat for that kind of moth.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you so much for sharing those with us. You're quite the mothmatician. And we know that you love Lepidoptera because, of course, working with butterfly conservation. What can you tell us about what's going on in the organisation at the moment?
So Butterfly Conservation is a UK-wide charity for butterflies and moths and their conservation, as the name suggests. And we've got a really exciting vote that is starting on Friday, where you can vote for your favourite butterfly. So all 60 species of resident or regular visitor butterflies will be available to look at and learn about on our website. So go on there, have a look, choose your favourite and vote, and then in June we will be crowning Britain's favourite butterfly. And as far as we know, it's never been done before, so for the first time we'll learn what is the species that most people like. You got a favourite butterfly?
Yeah, I think mine would have to be the swallowtail. I love the big, bold and beautiful swallowtails. I think, yeah, they're like works of art. I do love them.
Wow, I've never seen one. I'm going to have to come to Norfolk and come and visit. I think my favourite is a peacock butterfly. And it's funny you mentioned them being works of art. I feel like they're such beautiful colours, and every time I see a peacock butterfly I want to just stop whatever I'm doing and sit down and paint it, because yeah, they're really, really beautiful.
They are, I think my favourite, it changes a bit with the seasons. Right now my favourite is the orange tip, and I've seen a few actually here. So there you go, there's 3 of us, 3 different butterflies. It's open to anyone who's going to take the crown. I guess we'll find out in June.
Yeah, I can't wait to find out. That'll be really exciting. Yeah, and of course butterflies and moths, they're such photogenic creatures. And next we have a film about a wonderful competition that young people can get involved in, a wildlife photography competition, and we've got photographer Richard Burchett to tell us all about it.
Hi to you all, my name is Richard Burkett. I'm a professional wildlife and conservation photographer, and I'm delighted to be able to judge the competition this year for Hen Harrier Action. The theme this year is the colour of the wild. So nature is full of shapes, colours and patterns, and we're looking for original images showcasing nature's infinite colour palette, whether that's wildflowers, whether that's leafy tones, whether that's blues in nature, which is a rarish colour. We'd like to see your interpretation of this year's theme. So also the story behind the image, why you chose that particular subject, animal, composition, how you took the photo and what it means to you when you're taking that image. What does that picture portray to you? The feeling of a bird moving through the frame, or a particular backdrop with a nice wild flower with the sky diffused behind. A sort of thing we're looking for. Okay, the competition will be open to young people from the ages of 5 to 16 years of age. Okay, and the prizes will be awarded in each of the 3 categories. So we've got the young category, which is 5 to 8 years. We've got the junior, which is 9 to 12 years. And we've got the senior, which is 13 to 16 years. Entrants from schools and classes are encouraged and welcomed. If you can get together with your teachers, maybe submit a class collective of individual images would be fantastic. Okay, they can be taken on a smartphone, they can be taken on a bridge camera, a DSLR, mirrorless camera, whatever. Doesn't need to hold you back if you're not using a up-to-date camera. Smartphones do a great job. It's all about the person behind the camera, not the equipment. Okay, you must be between the ages of 5 to 16 on the 1st of May 2026. Entrants can interpret their theme, the colour of the wild, and concentrate on habitats, wildlife, plants, insects, and life within the UK. Okay, all images should be substantially the work of the entrant, okay, and full details on the rules are on the website. The competition is open for entries from Saturday the 9th of May, and the final date is midnight, Sunday the 26th of July 2026. Okay, judging will take place over a 4-week period, and winners will be announced on Saturday the 8th of August 2026. Okay, the prizes this year, we're charmed again to have Opticon give us the sponsorship this year, and the winner will receive in each category Opticon Adventurer 2's 8x42 binoculars, which are absolutely superb. Each category will have 2 runners-up, which will receive a £20 book token as well. So from me, best of luck. Get out there and get snapping. Perfect time of the year. Spring and into summer. Awesome. So really look forward to seeing your entries very soon.
Fantastic. So there we are. That's 2 great competitions that young people could get involved in. The Young Wildlife Photographers and also the Young Wild Writers competition. And to find out more information, all those details, head to our website, henharrierday.uk. That's henharrierday.uk. And sadly, that brings us to the end of our Skydancer Day broadcast.
Can't believe it.
Yeah, we've had a wonderful time here at the Nottinghamshire Wildlife Trust's Attenborough Nature Reserve. And it's been such a pleasure to chat about hen harriers, about conservation, restoration, partnerships, creativity, of course, those competitions, and the amazing beauty of nature.
Absolutely, we really have packed a lot into the last hour and a bit, so just wanted to say an absolutely huge thank you to everyone involved. So the team at Attenborough Nature Reserve for hosting us, our wonderful guests who've come on the camera today, and everyone behind the scenes at Hen Harrier Action. Please do support our work, register for our newsletter, make a donation, or even host a Hen Harrier Day yourselves. All of our actions really do add up, and together we are making a huge difference for nature. Thanks again for watching.
Thanks for watching.
Bye.
Cheerio.
Dance with me, my ghost in grey. Our end is close most every day. Blue-grey circles in the sky. The future's bleak for you and I. Show me your sky dancing skills with pure ballet. Past the kill to the ringtail on the wing. Dance as winter turns to spring. They hunt me, trap me, shoot me down. Help me, hear me cry out loud. Hear the sound of distant guns. Something evil this way comes. Scorched earth now where once you flew. Grouse moths mean there's less of you. They hide the bodies, hide the tags, deeply buried in peat hags. Blinding truth is like a lantern, for they can never hide the pattern. They hunt me, trap me, shoot me down. Help me, hear me cry out loud. Wall of death for circus spring traps all around. Evil gunmen, they still await them, for the Skydancers are earthbound.
Moorland dwellers and their serfs are now known for their true worth, clad in camouflage or tweeds. They try to hide their evil deeds.
With bellies full of lead and pies, their heads are empty except for lies. But who are we to criticize this rich man's game of genocide?
They hold me trapped.